told you I would bring a country player out, and here he is. This is Jeff Caines. Thanks for coming out today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. And he is going. Well, the topic of the day is country rhythm guitar, and like I can fake country music. I've been in a couple country cover bands, but like when I heard Jeff play, I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I got to bring him out and get him to show you this. So he's going to take you through some steps to start getting into country rhythm guitar and give you some pointers and things that, like, if you want to play country guitar, do this. So that's the idea. We have some resources for you. If you remember, the PDF with the 3 kind of levels, beginner, intermediate, and kind of the advanced thing is in there. And then I have a jam track for you, too, with the exact chord progression that's in each example.
Yeah.
So, cool. Take it away, man. So what's the first thing, like the first stylistic thing we need to do to get into country rhythm guitar?
Well, the first thing, I mean, the way that I approach rhythm guitar is that when you're kind of playing, you're tying in all the other aspects of what the rest of the band's doing. So I can sit here, I can strum my guitar in the same tempo of the song, not to say that's a bad thing, but we can add a little bit more to that. We can get a little bit more character behind it. We can get a little bit more of that kind of rhythm tie-in, because in my opinion, that's probably the strongest part of the band, is if you can get that whole rhythm section together, everyone's playing together, you're going to be off to a much better start. And everyone tends to kind of dive into it. You get a lot more dancing, you get a lot more of that kind of stuff. So I'll just dive right in.
Yeah.
Sure. So right off the top, couple disclaimers. A lot of people, especially with country guitar, have different principles. Depending on the tempo of the song and things like that, we can play. But picking patterns, for the examples today, just to keep things a little bit simpler, I'm just going to do everything fingerstyle. But you can do a hybrid picking. So we're holding the pick, in our fingers like such, and I'm using my picking fingers, plucking. That's quite a common thing. Or you can use the pick altogether. It's a little tricky to get accurate with what we're going to be doing, so I'm just going to kind of nullify all that and just go by the fingers. And the examples that are kind of there is a full progression, but just to kind of keep things moving, I'm just going to stay on the 1 chord. So I'm just going to stay on our E major, just so we can worry about our right hand, because that's where all the meat and potatoes are. So right off the bat, jumping into our first kind of example, what we're kind of doing is what I call the oompa beat. So we're kind of keeping the oomp in the pa. So it's I'll just play it so we can kind of hear it. So, and the idea is that I'm keeping this muted enough that I'm really kind of digging into this. This will eventually become kind of our bass guitar. This kind of is the second example. But as we start kind of building into it, we're adding a lot more kind of rhythmic sense to that. So all I'm doing with my hand, just naturally falling on the strings. And by default, my 4 fingers are actually just falling onto the 4 strings. And then I have my thumb, which is actually going to take care of the E and the A string. And I'm just doing kind of a side thumb pick, nothing totally extravagant. And that's all we're doing. But I'm muting it with the chunk of my hand, so I get this really nice kind of rhythmic sound out of it. Because if I'm playing this open, I'm not going to get the same kind of effect out of it.
It's a ballad.
And maybe that's the song. Maybe that's what you're trying to do. Maybe that's what you need. Great. This is just kind of some of the more normal kind of ways going about that. So the first example, again, just staying on the E chord, is just as simple as that. So it's our root note, and then it's the picking of the other 4 fingers and behind it. So we're going to go the E, and then we're going to go the other 4 strings, just where our fingers are sitting. And then when you mute that and do the same thing, that's all it is. And then when we kind of bring that up to speed, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the oompa.
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm on the, I don't even know, getting my candy from Willy Wonka. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for.
Country.
Yeah, in a country realm, yeah. So that's the first example. As the progression kind of moves forward, it's the same idea. All we're doing is just changing the chord. And then back to our 1 chord, so our E. Okay? So that's pretty much the elementary starting point. We're just kind of adding a lot more kind of punch to our rhythm. As we kind of move forward and get into the second part, the only difference now, if you think of the first example, what I was saying, we tie the whole band together. If we think of the first example of, say, our chords, so this is what the guitar player is doing, right? We're just playing the E. And we're just changing it rather than a full open strum, is all we're doing. So the second one, what we're going to do is we're going to actually add our bass player. And what our bass player is commonly doing is just what a 1 and 5 pattern is what we would call it. So on our E chord, to our A. And all I'm doing is just the 1 and the 5 of that. So it's an E and a B. And if I'm playing an E shape, well, look at that, it's the first 2 notes. So I'm still not even really having to move my hand. I'm just doing a little bit more control with my right hand, which makes things really nice and simple. So the second example, same rhythm pattern, but rather than going and staying on our 1 chord, I'm just gonna alternate my thumb from the E string to the A string. And I'm still doing the same picking, plucking pattern, or if you're using a hybrid picking system, or if you're using a full pick, whichever, when in Rome, you can carry on with that. So sticking on that bass line, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and or, oompa, 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 oompa. And then going to our A chord, or a 4 chord, and then back to the 1. So this one's a little tricky because now I'm actually having to move my index finger. I hadn't had to do a whole heck of a lot of moving yet, but, and then back to the 1. And I think in this example too, if I'm not mistaken, I think I have a chromatic walk-up, but it might be in the next one. The other difference that you can do, just for some flair, is that you can actually change that B major to just a B7. So all I'm doing is just kind of changing the voicing a little bit. That's really all that's happening.
So from the E chord to the A and B chords,
Yep.
you go from E, A, E, A, kind of alternating bass, and then you flip it.
Yeah, as far as the
A,
the picking pattern and stuff, and that's a little bit more on the kind of the bass player side, but yeah, that's basically all that's happening. Because I mean, the bass part isn't the most exciting thing. Sorry, bass players, but it is a very integral part of the whole rhythm of what you're kind of doing. So now we've gone from example 1 and 2, we've gone from just to. And whether we're playing it slow or much faster tempo, you're getting a lot more kind of control out of it.
And there are lead guitar players, country or otherwise, that if you ask them to do that, they could not. They could maybe great lead players. If you ask them to do that, they could not do it.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had the pleasure of playing with many different artists and stuff, and all of them can play circles around me as far as lead stuff. But when it comes to the rhythm stuff, it's funny. We all kind of have a little strength. And for me, I just kind of went down that avenue. I'm like, great, I'll get more calls if I do it that way. So if you want to keep playing in country, that's what you need to do. So, but yeah, I mean, it definitely is fun because, I mean, like, yeah, solo and melting faces and stuff, that's not my forte. But kind of staying back and keeping everything locked together is what I actually enjoy doing. It's very, I mean, even if you take that outside of country, you look into, say, John Mayer or things like that, it's very rhythmic, and he does a lot of hits and pops and bangs, and that's kind of getting the drums involved. Which leads us to example number 3. So as you're kind of moving forward with that, we're still sticking on the same progression. Same progression, but we'll just stay on the E chord. Now what we've done is if we kind of escalate that all together, we got our E. So example 2 is our alternating bass line. Now all I'm going to do is add the drums into that, and I'll play this and then we'll explain it. So you can have a lot more fun with that because now what we've done is we've brought in the chords, our bass line, and our drummer. So in this particular example, I'm kind of following like a train beat, like a taka. That's what our
sounds like
drums.
Johnny Cash, man.
Yep, totally. Yeah. And that's actually one of the ways with one of the artists we play Folsom Prison Blues. We actually do it double time, and that's how we actually play it, and it gets the place moving. So, but yeah, that's that kind of traditional country train beat kind of stuff. Again, you can use this in other faucets. You don't have to be stuck to that particular chord progression or that particular rhythm. But as far as the technique on this, I'm still sticking on the same kind of thing. I'm staying muted. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of a triplet feeling. And this one, that's kind of what the rhythm, let me stay connected with you here. that's kind of what the little arrows are on the tab. So we actually are going to, I'm just using my nails actually. Again, depending on how you're playing with a pick or hybrid or whatever, but because I can actually do that with a pick as well. But all I'm doing is I'm just taking, and I don't have long nails. I don't need ping pong balls or anything like that. It's just a regular nail. All we're doing is we're just actually scraping. So it's basically I guess it would be a nail mute. Is that what we're calling that?
We are now.
Yeah, that's patent pending. So that's basically all you're looking at there. And so now what I'm going to do is in between our bass note, right? This is where we're coming. So now I'll just kind of replace the pluck. Which is very difficult to do this slow. But this is kind of how you have to get into the rhythm and be able to do that. That's what's going to help you get up to tempo, is really locking that rhythm down and kind of getting the control. So again, I'm just keeping that bass line going with my thumb, and all I'm doing is I'm just kind of scraping up and down, and my finger actually is even coming back up. I'm just using the pad of my finger. And you almost immediately kind of start riding a horse.
Yep.
Or a train, or
cool thing about that, man, is just like if you can do that and you have that basic fundamental kind of coordination down, you can back yourself up on so many things, or other people if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and I mean even with one, the nice thing about something like that as well is that you can even be the only player on stage.
Exactly.
You don't necessarily have to have
anybody.
a full band. When you have a whole band and you're all doing the same thing and you're together, it sounds awesome. It sounds big and full and everyone's locked together and it's a huge driving train. But if you don't have any of that stuff there, that's totally fine too. And I mean, there's a lot to kind of chew on with all these different rhythms and picking patterns and things like that. But I mean, you can even take that to a whole other extreme and add in extra little lead bits and kind of fill-ins and chromatic runs. And it's a kind of taking in from lead guitar playing as well as bass line parts. So what a bass player is kind of doing. And that's one of the examples there from our 1 to our 4 chords. So from our E to our A, we're just doing, rather than back and forth, and again, talk about Johnny Cash. That's pretty much all of his songs do that. So it's just a chromatic walk up, and we can keep doing that. Right, so you can really get into that and have a lot of fun. So slow it down, kind of lock in the fingers, especially with the rhythmic stuff, and kind of get that under control. Get it under your fingers. I always love that term. Get it under your fingers, and then from there you can really have a lot of fun with it.
Cool. One thing that I will say to you guys, and I've made this mistake many times, even though I've known better, especially on fingerstyle stuff, anything involving like alternating bass, is don't skip steps. If you're new to this, get example 1, the first version of it down, and don't be afraid to just stay there and live there for a while. Because what you're doing, you're programming where the strings are with your thumb, so you're going to be accurate before going into something that's alternating bass, which if you jump right into that and you haven't done it before, it's probably going to frustrate the living heck out of you. So
yeah, absolutely.
Spend a lot of time on example 1 here, just by itself without any chords, or just on the 1 chord.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just live there for a while until you're super comfortable with it. Then go, follow the steps. Then go through the chord progression with 1. Yeah. And then when you're comfortable with that, then you can start adding in the alternating bass. Then you're there.
And then that's natural progression, just one into the next.
But if you follow that progression, it's going to make doing what Jeff just did, that little flurry there that sounded awesome. It's going to make that a lot easier when you get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the biggest thing. It's just, really sticking on to that. And it's kind of second nature now with a lot of the stuff when your hands just kind of drop. I don't even think about it. My hands are automatically, immediately in position for that. And that's a big part too, is actually just kind of feeling comfortable for it, especially if you are someone that's playing with a pick. It's very funny, at least I find, if you've been playing with the pick for so long and you throw it away,
It's like I can't do anything.
I'm stuck. I don't know how to do anything. How am I supposed to use my fingers like this? And yes, there's a big correlation of running into your fingers and getting the control and all that kind of stuff, sure. But it's amazing how that's not another thing. So it's another great way to broaden your horizons, even if this isn't your forte. This isn't something that you're willing to get into, but it's something that you can take, especially all the kind of alternate picking lines and things like that, and take it to a different genre or even a different style altogether.
I've been doing that a little bit today. As a matter of fact, my morning practice routine that I do 2 days a week, that's more choppy oriented. I was like, I'm not doing this as a pick today.
Yeah.
And it was on acoustics. I was like, it felt really good, and that's something that maybe good to challenge yourself. I've told this story before, but Richie, you know who Richie Kotzen is?
Yep.
He plays with just his fingers now. He's known
Yes.
to being a picker, and he's like, one day I just got sick of them. I was tired of my playing. I was really frustrated with this, so I just chucked it right before a gig.
Yeah, and it's amazing because now you're using, and people will use their fingers like a pick, right? Like they're using the back of their nail or things like that. But his guitars too. It's like the neck is huge on it, and it's crazy. So having that kind of control, a lot of your fingers, but then you also get a lot more dynamic.
Yeah, you do.
You can have a lot more fun with it too. So
cool. Well, if you have questions about any of this stuff that Jeff's talking about, country rhythm guitar or anything else that you think that we could answer for you, you can send your questions to live@guitareo.com. There's already one question in there, one email I know that has like 4 questions in there. So I'm going to get into that. Send your questions in if you have them. Also, if you remember, you can put them in the chat. That's fine. I'll see them there. And then Jeff will play us out with the jam track for today, which is just the chord progression over which we've been playing for the example. So it's something that's really good. Even if you can just play the first level example, the beginner example, it's fun to play over that and it gives you something to shoot for. So I'm just going to pull this
actually,
up.
maybe what I'll do for that jam track is I'll play like 3 different styles.
That's good, yeah.
Like the examples.
Yeah.
Because it is the same progression. You can kind of hear how it is in conjunction with kind of what we're doing. So.
Cool. Yeah, that jam track rotates 4 times, so that'll be a really good idea.
So maybe the 4th one will be a flurry.
Yeah, perfect. David Leader, hey David, says, I'll not be able to attend today's live lesson. I'm actually, for a very valid excuse, I'm in Nashville attending Grand Ole Opry, so that's kind of appropriate.
You should be teaching us. Yeah.
Oh, he's not playing, he's just there.
Oh, he's just there,
Yeah.
okay.
He says, 4 questions actually. What are the 3 most commonly used strumming patterns in country music? And that's kind of subjective, but what are 3 common ones?
Honestly, that would probably be kind of a little bit closer to example 3. So, and that's just that kind of, so even if you're doing that in a chord progression, or if I grab my plectrum.
There you go.
So it's kind of a combination of what we're doing, but we're just picking on the 1. So a stronger 1, so one beat I'm referring to, so 1, and then kind of like that little triplet. And again, it depends on the call. Yeah, as you said, it's kind of subjective. It depends on the song and tempo and stuff, but that's a very common. And again, it just kind of keeps that rhythm going. But I'm sure you'll be watching some players that can do that a lot better than I can. So.
Yeah, especially in classic country, that one is really heavily used.
Yeah, new country is all sorts of different genres blended in, right? So it's a little bit of rock and pop and.
Number 2, what are some of the most common keys in country music?
A and E by far. Main reason for that is particularly with these guitar players, a lot of them want to be doing all these kind of lead licks, and I'll kind of get to that on the example. But playing all that kind of open. I can't do that necessarily as easily in other kind of keys. So that's where that kind of comes into play. So yeah, for sure, E and A.
Okay, cool. What are some common chord progressions in country music, or the most common?
The 1-4-5 is probably the most popular, which is what we're playing with today. So whatever key you're in, even if we're in G, we're going to go our G to our C. To our D. So, and that's just that kind of alternating back and forth. And again, it depends on the song and stuff of what you're doing. But that 1-4-5 progression is quite simple. Or the 1, the 5, 6 minor, and the 4.
Very poppy.
It's very poppy.
Twangy pop, man.
But that's, you put a little bit of, you get the urban cowboy look, and now you're a country superstars. So those are probably the 2 more popular ones that are out there. And again, it depends on the call. So.
Cool. Last question from this email. And if you have questions, members, you can get them in live@guitareo.com. Let's see. What percentage of the time do you and or other country artists use bar chords?
Wow, that's a great question. Actually, again, country is such a loose term. In traditional sense, I don't use barcodes a whole heck of a lot. Like in this example, kind of what we're doing today, they're all open chords. But if you start getting into that, especially if you're changing keys, I mean, people can start using capos, and then you can still stay in your open chords, where we just kind of move the key up, which is quite common if you have people doing covers of other songs. Well, I can't sing as low or as high or anything, so sometimes you can get away with that. But a lot of times, I don't know, I would have to probably say right in the middle there. You're getting a little bit of both because you are getting... Yeah, you're getting a little bit of everything kind of thrown at you. You get those rock chord kind of progression, and it's kind of tricky to get in there and kind of play that open is easy.
I would say when I'm the only guitar player in a country band, like covering a lot of ground, I really either have like power chords or I'm up using triad shapes farther up the neck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're just trying to fill that out. Yeah. And it also depends. Some bass players actually think they're guitar players, and they'll be all over the place, which actually is a lot of fun to play with.
Some of them are guitar players.
Yeah. I make an awful bass player.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but that's how that works.
Oh, cool username. This email is from Fat Strat.
Fat Strat.
Yep. And it says, are there any effects pedal effects pedal? I can't speak.
Yeah.
Are there any effects pedals commonly used in country music? If so, what are they?
Yeah, actually, it was funny. We were just talking about this earlier. The most common thing, I mean, I have a spaceship here. Really, it's just so I have a clock, so I know what time it is. But the most common thing that I actually use in this particular thing, I actually have a little slap back, and that you can kind of hear that little delay. But I mean, if I take that off, it kind of now it's just a reverb. But the biggest thing, and this is I won't open up a strong debate, but compressing. Having a compressor at the beginning of your chain, just kind of tying that all in, especially if we're doing a lot of that rhythmic stuff. I kind of want that just in behind me. I just need that, just to squeeze my dynamics together. It's not going to be all loose. It just gives me a lot. And some people will really crank it. I don't have I'm less, I don't know, 30%, 40% kind of compression. So I'm not doing a lot. I'm just doing enough that I'm kind of squeezing it together. But that would probably be the two. Typically a compressor and some sort of delay-esque sound. If you're doing this kind of stuff, like a slapback is quite common, or a little bit of a quick delay on your reverb pedal.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would completely agree. Like the only other thing I really use besides that is like an overdrive.
Yeah, and then now we're still in country, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. I'm still in country. I'm not using a distortion pedal.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Let me just look here and make sure there are I don't think there are any questions in the chat. So that's it for questions. Guys, if you have any questions about country rhythm guitar, you can post it in the forums or email me, and I can pass along your question to Jeff or anything like that. But we'll definitely have to have you out again and maybe dig into like some chicken picking stuff, more like a hybrid picking, or maybe like country fills too. That would be really good. I'm sure people.
Absolutely. I'll kind of get into that. I'll do that as kind of the fourth example, just a little bit of where this can lead to when you really start kind of getting into it. I won't go crazy. But.
Sure. You want to do that right now, and then you can play out. Both double playing out.
Sorry. Do you want me to do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, just give them some example, like play a little phrase and then just expound on it.
Yeah, so I mean, like if we just, the next step from, if we go into from 3. And then you can start adding all the extra little fun stuff. So yeah, you can just kind of start filling in, just kind of playing around your chord structures. You don't have to go crazy. I mean, that's typically when things start falling off the off the rails, so to speak, is when you're like, oh, look at all the notes I can play as fast as I can. It doesn't really work that well. So, but yeah, if you're kind of staying in that shape, and that's really all I'm kind of doing.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm just rolling my fingers. And that's really all that is. And I'm just kind of getting to the chord, if you will. So I'm not necessarily playing everything right off the top. And that's where you can start adding in all your kind of little runs and things like that.
Cool. So, well, thanks for joining us, guys. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to submit them in the forums or email me. Play out?
Sure.
Okay, so this is the jam track that we have for you in the download section. If you remember, you can check it out. All it is 4 bars of E, 2 bars of A, 2 bars of E, 2 bars of B, 2 bars of E.
Yeah.
So, here you go.
Just like that.
Thanks, guys. See you later.